Time now for a Sioux Falls real estate update with Brent Baker. He is with Clients First Group and Keller Williams. How are you, sir?
I am well.
I'm excited to chat with you. Always fun things to visit. Every time we talk, it seems like I learned something new.
I thought I was the one that was supposed to learn.
No, you teach me every single time we talk. But we're going to talk today about dispelling some myths, because we mentioned this briefly last week. We did it over the phone. We talked a little bit about some stuff that's in the news, and some people are trying to figure out what all of this stuff means. So kind of the broad view is that there's some things from NAR. Who is NAR?
The National Association of Realtors.
And they're looking at maybe making some adjustments, but there are a lot of myths that people think they know what they're talking about, but they don't necessarily know. So let's set things straight, and let's get the real scoop here.
All right. So sort of the crux of the problem here is that some sellers feel that they have been wronged by the realtor associations and so forth because of the commissions.
Okay.
And so traditionally what has happened is that a seller lists their property with an agent. There's a commission that's agreed to. It's, there are certain realtors that only work for certain rates or percentages.
Yeah.
However, it's not that NAR says you have to charge this amount.
Yeah.
Which that would be price fixing, and that would be wrong.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so these sellers feel they should not have had to pay that commission because part of that went to the buyer agent. They feel that the buyer should pay for the buyer agent.
Mm.
And so the Department of Justice has been pursuing NAR, and there's been class action suits, and there are all sorts of stories out there about what's happening and so forth. Government economists, with all of their wisdom, say, well, if the buyer agent wasn't compensated from the proceeds of the sale, the seller would keep more of the money. Well, that's a very simplistic view, but the reality is, one, the homeowner did agree to list for that price, and if the buyer has to pay for that agent out of their pocket, well, then they're probably going to offer less for the house to begin with.
Yeah.
And in many cases, buyers don't have that liquid cash.
Yeah.
So if people look back to when they bought a house, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody or very many people that wrote a check to their buyer agent for all that they did along the way. They closed the sale, but behind the scenes, a commission was withheld from that seller, and the listing firm got some, the buyer firm got some.
Yeah.
But the thought is in some arenas that buyer agency will go away. Well, that would be tragic.
Yeah.
Because otherwise then you have only limited agency. And limited agency is one agent representing buyer and seller.
And then how do you do that fairly?
Correct. Because, if it's a new construction, it's pretty simple. There's probably very little trouble there to begin with, and most builders offer a 1-year warranty. But when you're talking about down the road, as these homes get older, issues are going to arise over time. And a limited agent cannot say or do anything that would put one party at a disadvantage to another. So I, for example, when I list these 75-year-old houses or older, I refuse to represent the buyer.
Yeah. Simply
because things are going to come up. Things the seller may not have even known about their own home.
Yeah.
Now, how do I advocate for them in an inspection?
And be on both sides of the aisle there.
Yep. You can't really, for both parties to feel that they got treated well.
So some of the myths that are involved here, there's somewhere they think that it's only covering a fraction of the members, and they think that like the big brokerage agents have to fend for themselves. But this stuff is all not accurate. This is just the media getting out ahead of something and saying what they think, but it's not even the case.
Correct. Kind of my thing is, if you listen to the news media about any topic, name a topic, it always has their slant. I don't care if it's politics. I don't care if it's business. I don't care if it's consumer protections. It's always got a slant. So not everything is settled yet. The battle is still going on. Just because a jury said something or a judge said something doesn't mean it's not going to be repealed or altered or something. There are a lot of people that are covered by the settlement. There are some that are not. Some chose not to be a part of it. That's a lot of dirt to still be hashed out.
So some of the other things I'm seeing here, myth 3, it says that they would require a standard 6% commission. So they're not making a standard. Everybody has to do this same thing.
Correct. There never was a standard. No. People will say, well, what's the standard rate or what is the rate? Implying that there is one set, and there isn't. I know realtors that list for what we would consider very high percentages, but then also there's a lot more involved in that type of listing. There's a lot more time and marketing invested. And, there are limited agent brokers out there. They literally just list your house, get it on the MLS. That's it. You have to negotiate. Nobody's guiding you. Nobody is giving you counsel. So then you have the difference between a functionary and a fiduciary, and that's a whole other discussion.
Absolutely. One of the other myths probably is more geared towards realtors, but it's talking about raising dues for the National Association of Realtors, and they're saying they're not planning to do that. But myth number 5, brokers representing buyers would now have to work for free. So that's just a myth, right?
Well, clearly, because if anybody listening is willing to work for free, they can imagine how well I've been approached by people thinking they should get their license. And so they're asking me, just because you went to school doesn't mean you don't have continuing education. Engineers do, lawyers do. Anybody in a licensed profession has continuing ed. And then you have your other expenses involved. Nobody pays for my insurance. Nobody pays for my gas. Nobody pays for the tires on my vehicle. Nobody pays my office expenses or for my admin or my transaction coordinator. Nobody pays for all that marketing. That is all coming out of whatever commission we agreed to on that listing contract.
Absolutely. And some of the other myths that are on here, one is talking about compensation rather, that's not really changing. So that's good to know that that's not going to change. And the last one is saying that the NAR settled because of the allegations are true. I don't know that that's the case. It wasn't that the allegations were true, but the settlement was probably just the easiest solution, I'm assuming.
That is true in a large number of lawsuits, is that rather than continue to fight and prove what's right, people will settle just to move on and reduce the expenses, the headaches of it all. Reality is there's going to be change in the mechanisms of how we do business, but at the end of the day, it still costs a certain amount of money to operate and to do a job. And people will complain, and we touched on the so-called standard rate. Commission rates tend to be in a group, pretty tight group, and the reason is one is competition. Competition is what holds it down and keeps it from rising. And so realtors are going to be very similar in what they charge unless they are a very limited agency. But otherwise, competition is what's going to hold it in a group, whether it moves up or down.
At the end of the day, they're all numbers, and the only number that matters is your phone number. How do people get a hold of you, sir?
Correct. The most important number...
That's what I was thinking anyway.
...is 605-310-0297.
Very nice. Brent Baker is our guest today. You can also find him online at clientsfirstgroup.com. And if you missed any of this program, or if you'd like to maybe catch any of the programs from the past, in addition to being a radio show, this is also saved as a podcast at SiouxFallsPodcast.com.